Hi, my name's Craig from the Sound Therapy Company, and one of the things I get asked about all the time is what's it like to attend a sound bath. So today we're going to answer that question. So welcome back, and yes, it's a question I get asked all the time. What's it like? And in some ways it's quite a complex answer, and that's partly because there's lots of variables. So today we're going to look at a few things that you should consider before you go for your first sound or gong bath. So let's take a run through some of the things that we're going to cover in the video. 1. Everybody is unique. 2. Every practitioner has their own style. 3. What's the intention of the session? 4. The energies in the room. 5. The practitioner's credentials. 6. Questions to ask your practitioner. 7. Contraindications. 8. Your position in the room. 9. Gentle exposure technique. And after looking at lots of things to be aware of before you attend a session, 10, we're going to look at some of the main benefits. Okay, so 1 is that everybody is unique. So 10, 20 people can experience the same sound bath, and each one of those people will have an individual experience. So in terms of gong baths, we can make some generalizations, but we can't predict 100% how every single person in the room is going to respond to the sound session. So that's the first thing to be aware of. The second thing is every practitioner is unique. So each practitioner will have their own style. Some practitioners like to play the instruments more intensely than other practitioners. So sometimes it's personal preference. Sometimes it's a lack of awareness. The third thing to be aware of is that it depends on the intention for the session. Now, the vast majority of my sessions, for some of the reasons that we're going to talk about in the video, probably around about 80–85% of the sessions that I do are relaxation sessions. That doesn't mean that playing instruments or the gong more intensely doesn't have its place. I will play the gong more intensely during workshop events, during one-to-one sessions, where that's the intention of that particular session. So it's not inherently bad to play the gong intensely. It depends on the intention, the space that's been created, how well held that space is, and the fact that the clients will be going into those sessions fully aware that the gong is going to get more intense or the instruments are going to get more intense. So yeah, client information is very important. The client has to make an informed decision. The fourth thing to be aware of is that the energies in the room are going to be different every time. So that's a number of things. There's practical things like the size of the room, the shape of the room, whether there's soft furnishings in the room, whether there's lots of hard surfaces in the room. All those will make a difference to the quality of the sound and the sound experience. Also, everybody in that room, if it's a group of people, is coming in with different energies, even the practitioner. So I know, depending on how I'm feeling, I will facilitate sessions in different ways. So everybody in the room is coming together. There's a combined energy. There's the practicalities of the room and the size. There are lots of variables to think about, and no two sound sessions will be the same. So even if a practitioner uses the same kit, goes through the same sequence of instruments, there will still be lots of variation in how that sound bath is expressed and how it is received. So that's a number of things around some of the variations and why it's difficult to give an exact response that, oh yes, a gong bath, this is what's going to happen. this is what you'll experience because it changes. Okay, so let's think about then, if there's no guarantees about what can happen, how can we minimise any risks of attending a gong bath? So first of all, check out the practitioner. We've already stated that every practitioner has their own style. So speak to the practitioner, find out what type of session it's going to be. Is it going to be a relaxation session? Is it going to be a more intense session? So yeah, having that conversation with the practitioner is a good idea. Check out the practitioner's credentials. Are they trained? Are they insured? Are they a member of a professional body, which means that they adhere to certain codes of ethics and good practice standards? Are they a trauma-aware practitioner? Do they know how to hold space and handle any situations that may arise during a sound bath? Within all that, there's also a duty on yourself as a client attending a sound bath to understand yourself and where you're at. So some people know that they are sensitive to sound, and some people are easily unsettled. So you're the best person to judge whether that's true for you. So asking some of these questions up front can take out some of that uncertainty for you and maybe make it easier to relax into the session. Another thing to be aware of is contraindications. There are a number of situations where it is not recommended that you take part in a sound session. Now, there's not many of these, and most of them are a precaution, in that it's not to say that any of these things, that a sound bath will be detrimental if you've got any of these conditions. It's more about safety and being cautious, having a cautious approach. So the first one is in the first 3 months of pregnancy. Now that is pretty much across the board with most holistic therapies. And it's such a sensitive time in the baby's development that we don't want to be taking any risks at that time. So that's the first 3 months of pregnancy is a no. The second one is if you have any unmanaged and serious mental health conditions. So generally depression and anxiety of a low level are generally okay during sound baths, and it can be one of the benefits of going for sound baths can be to help with those situations. But more intense conditions, things like PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia, epilepsy and seizures is another one for the same reason. We don't fully understand what's happening in the brain during these times, and sound does affect our brainwaves, so as a precaution, it's generally understood that it's not recommended to take a sound bath if you suffer from epilepsy or seizures. Now, having said that, there are some people who work specifically with clients in those groups because it has been found to be beneficial, but as a general rule, it's not recommended. Another one, which is a bit of a grey area, but anybody with pacemakers. So I know personally I've had people in my sessions who've had pacemakers, and again it's about taking precautions and having a dialogue with the client. That's one of the most important things in these situations, is having that dialogue with the client. But definitely no instruments on the body or playing over the body with really powerful instruments like a drum or the gong, for example. Those aren't recommended. Actually, low blood pressure, if you've got very low blood pressure, for reasons we'll look at in a minute, again, that's another instance where you want to be careful about attending a sound bath. Depending on who you speak to, there are a number of other potential contraindications. Being aware that if you had recent surgery, you've got any broken bones, any other types of injuries, that the vibrations from the sound can agitate those areas and in some cases cause intense sensations, maybe even painful sensations. And again, that's something to be aware of. So that's a brief run through on contraindications. It could be a whole new video on itself, but for now, we'll leave contraindications there. So we've looked at a couple of steps already now that you can take. Check out the practitioner, check out the intention for the session. Is it a relaxation? Is it a more intense or more energizing session? Speak to the practitioner about contraindications. Have a think about your level of sensitivity. Where's your threshold in terms of sound experiences? Do you know that you are sensitive to sound? Do you know that being in noisy environments, for example, you start to feel unsettled? If that's the case, then you may want to avoid going to a sound session, but there are also some steps we can take to help mitigate any risks. So the first one is thinking about where you position yourself in the room. So the closer you are to the instruments, particularly the gong and the drum, when they're played, they produce lots of sound waves, quite intense sound waves, and when you're close to them, you will feel those resonances in and around the body. With other instruments, they're more subtle, but you can still get sensations within the body. So placing yourself further away from the instruments is maybe a good idea. Also, maybe being next to a door so that if you do feel overwhelmed at any point, that you can get up and leave the space quietly without disturbing other people. Then again, that's another step you could take to help mitigate any risks. Having said all that, I have worked with people who are sensitive, who do have things underlying that they want to try to release in some way or to reduce the effects of the symptoms of. So there are ways you can gently expose yourself to sound. So maybe starting off at a lower level of volume and intensity and building those up. So that's where you could work with a practitioner on a one-to-one basis especially. This is useful of starting off with quieter, gentler sounds and slowly exposing yourself and becoming accustomed to receiving more intense sounds, and that can all be done in a safe, controlled way. So again, we're not saying that intense sound is necessarily bad, it's just where you're at in terms of a client and in terms of receiving that sound. Okay, so we spent a bit of time looking at why it's a difficult question to answer, looking at some of the ways that you can reduce any risks involved with going to a sound bath. So one of the things we need to be aware of as practitioners is giving the client enough information so they can make an informed decision as to whether to attend a sound session or not. And it's tricky sometimes finding that balance. So we've talked a lot about the things you need to be aware of, contraindications, when it's not a good time to attend a sound bath, or in situations when it may not be good to attend a sound bath. But let's have a look at some of the benefits. There are lots of benefits in attending a sound session. If we bear some of these things in mind, so if you find a practitioner who plays with awareness and sensitivity and is good at holding space, then the vast majority of people will have a wonderful, even blissful experience. Some of the benefits of sound healing: it helps to calm our mind, it slows our brain waves down. So that helps to balance our nervous system. It lowers our heart rate and our blood pressure. Our breathing slows down and the body physically relaxes. It releases tension and we can drop into this really wonderful deep state of relaxation. So it's something our bodies do naturally, and we're using sound as a tool to help to take us down into this really deep, relaxed state of being. So let's look at, for a minute, at some of the benefits of going to an intense session. So we can work with the energy of the instruments. So particularly instruments like the drum and the gong have a very physical energy, a very powerful energy. They call some of the techniques used on the gong, we can call that fire. There's a fire technique that we use. And we can use that to help charge our own inner fire, to help, we can draw on the strength, the energy within those sound waves to help bolster our own sense of energy and strength and really work with that. You know, sometimes taking a deep breath in and really pulling in from the energies of these sound waves as they're created is one way to work intensely with the gongs. We can also use the gongs in a more intense session to help release stagnant energy or any blockages or any resistances that we have in the body. Now, it needs to be done in a controlled way. There's a definite methodology used to do these sessions in a safe way. So again, finding a practitioner who really knows how to work with the dynamics of the sound and who's really good at holding space and handling any situations that may come up. One of the other main benefits of sound healing is that the physical vibrations from the sound waves are felt within our subtle energy fields and within the physical body. And this can help to bring balance and harmony back to the body and the energy fields, depending on the type of session and how the instruments are played. This may be more of an experience of relaxation, or we can really use these energies to help to stimulate and energize different aspects of our physical bodies and also our subtle energy fields and our mindset and our approach to different situations. So there are some of the benefits of going to a sound session. The vast majority of sessions you go to will probably be relaxation sessions, but it's worth checking out with the practitioner beforehand just to make sure that's the case. So let's just talk a little bit about what to expect if you do attend a sound bath. So the first thing I would say is arrive 10 to 15 minutes early, and that gives you time to settle down, maybe just have a quick chat with the practitioner, go to the toilet, make yourself a comfy nest. Most people like to lie down to receive the sound bath, so bring in blankets and cushions and pillows, maybe a bottle of water to sit, yoga mats. Sometimes they're provided by the venues, sometimes they're not, so that's worth checking as well. But yeah, give yourself plenty of time. Don't arrive more than 15 minutes early because the practitioner will still be setting up and maybe going through their own initial preparations for the sound session. But 10 to 15 minutes is a good time to allow yourself to come in, not be rushed, and be able to settle down. So the session should start with an introductory chat, and in that the practitioner should cover what to expect from the session, what type of instruments they're going to use, how long the session will last, so lots of information about the session. They should also give you some pointers on what to do if you start to feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed. There's a few techniques you can use in those situations that may help you come back to being more centered and more grounded. They should always give you the option that if you need to leave the space, you can do. So these are some of the things that will be covered during the introductory chat. At some point, they'll ask you to settle down. So as I've said, most people like to lie down flat on their backs and have props available to make sure they're comfortable. You can stay seated if you wish to. For people that snore, either being propped up or lay on your side is a good idea if you know that you have a tendency to snore, so that you don't disturb other people in the session. And then generally you'll have, depending on the session, if it's an hour's gong bath, what you'll tend to have is 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes of introductory chat, round about 40-45 minutes of actual sound experience, and then that leaves 10 minutes or so at the end for delivering aftercare. So you've had your introductory chat, they've settled you down, you've got nice and comfy, there's usually a bit of a talk down sequence beforehand, and then they'll start playing the instruments. So again, it depends on the practitioner and the style, but in my sessions, we start off really gradually, and especially in the relaxations, all the transitions are really nice and gentle, very controlled dynamics of sound. We build up the intensity of the different instruments, but in a very controlled way. So you'll go through your sound journey with a mixture of different instruments. Towards the end of the session, you'll be left in silence for a period of time. And again, that varies between practitioners, and that's to help you integrate your experience from attending the sound bath. And it's really lovely to just check back in at that point and notice how you're feeling. And then at some point, the practitioner will use their voice and talk you back out of the session. Then at the end, there should be an opportunity to share your experience and discuss it if you wish to. It's not mandatory, you don't have to do this, but some people really like to talk about the experiences they've had. The facilitator should then deliver some aftercare, telling you how to look after yourself after the session, some of the things you need to be aware of. Hopefully you'll get some contact details, so if you need to check in about anything in the next few hours or days, sometimes when we have shifts in energy, it doesn't always happen in the moment, and in the session it can happen slightly afterwards, or even in the next day or two. Things can still be moving around some of the energies. So it's a good idea to have the practitioner's details so that you can get in touch with them if you need to. So this is all part of the aftercare package. So in a relaxation sound bath, one of the most effective places you can get to is just to be able to let go and almost surrender to the sound. Just be open fully and receiving the sound and observing your experience during the sound bath. Now, if it's your first sound bath, you might be in your head a little bit more because you'll be wondering, oh, what's coming next and what's going to happen and all these types of questions. So the more often you go to a sound bath, often you can start to relax a bit sooner, maybe drop a bit deeper into the session. The majority of people get to a place where the mind just switches off. You drift off somewhere completely different for a good length of time. Sometimes it can be 20 or 30 minutes of the sound bath. You're just in this, they call it an altered state of consciousness, where our brainwaves have really slowed down. Our perception of the outside world changes. Our mind slows down, so the number of thoughts we have really slows down, and we're just in this really peaceful, tranquil place. We've talked a little bit about this state, altered state of consciousness. When our brainwaves slow down, it's something we do naturally in our daily cycles. So it's like going into a daydream state and then a light sleep state. Some people will even drop down to a low delta brainwave state, which is similar to being in a really deep sleep. So the body at this point is really relaxed. We're releasing tension from the body. Sometimes when we go into these lower brainwave states, the theta brainwave state is our dream state. So sometimes people will get colours and patterns, geometric shapes going on. They may get visual experiences. They may even get dreamlike sequences. And sometimes that's why some people will call them sound journeys, because we can go off on these types of journeys. It doesn't always happen. Some people are more visual than others. I don't get many visuals during a session. Tend to get blobs of colour or concentric rings. Absolutely everybody is different, and it's not to say that if you don't experience that it's not working properly. Everybody's experience is completely different. So the physical body starts to relax and release tension. There may be certain parts of the sound bath where we feel more energised, we feel energy flowing in the system, we may feel energies flowing, so tingling sensations, signs of heat, coolness, sometimes even nausea, or we can often get gurgling tummies when our body starts to relax. The body can feel really cold, and that's because the blood flows from our extremities in towards our more internal organs. So that's why blankets, even in summer, covering up with a blanket is really nice. Helps keep us warm, and there's something about being snuggled under a blanket which is quite soothing and therapeutic as well. So that leads us on to another thing about taking as many props as you can. Make sure you're as comfortable as possible during the sound session. And we've already said about how, especially the drum and the gong, are really physical instruments, and you will feel physical resonances in the body during a sound bath. Or different parts of the body may feel more stimulated during the sound bath. So things like high-pitched sounds, chimes might stimulate the upper chakra areas, the head space. Different sounds will resonate with different parts of the body. So we've talked about lots of stuff there. So I said one of the most important things is finding a practitioner that you really resonate with, somebody who plays with sensitivity and awareness, who is a member of a professional body, has good ethics and good practices. And if you find somebody like this, then the vast majority of sessions, if you're going for relaxation sessions, the vast majority of people, as I said before, 85, 90, 95% of people will have a really wonderful experience. And it's not to say that the people who don't have an amazingly wonderful experience, that it's going to be absolutely horrendous. You know, there is a scale. For some people, they might feel really overwhelmed. I would say that is a really small number. You know, personally, I've never had somebody leave a session because it's been too intense. It's generally because they've had a coughing fit or, they've started to feel unsettled for some other reason. If you're at all unsure, if you've heard people talking about sound bath and saying, oh, it's absolutely amazing, but you're still a little bit unsure as to whether to attend, then speak to the practitioner, have a chat with them, ask a few of the questions we've discussed in the video, maybe even speak to a few different practitioners. I'd always recommend trying out a few different practitioners anyway, and there'll be one that you go, oh wow, yeah, I really love the way they host their sessions. And again, it's coming back to that personal resonance you have with the practitioner or with how they conduct the session. And coming back to what I've said throughout the whole video, just to wrap it up, it is really difficult to describe what it's like to attend a sound bath. I've been running the sessions for years now, and no two sessions are the same. For me, for clients, every experience is different. And so I think there does come a point when if you've done all your checks and you're comfortable to go along, then going along is the only way to find out what it's like. You can't describe it. Some people find that it's really difficult to put into words their experience. Some people can have a really spiritual experience even, and it can be really difficult to put it into words, just that, oh wow, it was amazing. That's the vast majority of feedback that I receive, is that, oh wow, that was just amazing. So even though we've talked a lot about some of the things you need to be aware of, some of the contraindications, and it's important that the sound sessions are conducted in a safe and professional way, that there's good aftercare and good client care and trauma awareness. Having said all that, if you find a practitioner who plays with sensitivity and awareness, the vast majority of people will just have a wonderful experience. So if you have any questions, then please put them in the comments section below the video, and I'll do my best to answer them. Please like and subscribe as well. That does help this information get out to more people. And I really hope that's helped you decide whether you'd like to attend a sound bath or not. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.